of the scariest places on Earth, just outside of Miami, Florida, United States. That's where we're going to be doing race number 9 and 12 of season 12. It's the US IndyCar League live, uninterrupted, right here on VirtualRacing.Network. It's so great to have you along with us here for today's race. 127 laps around this Hurst racetrack, if you could call it that. It actually kind of is, and we'll get into that story here in just a minute. But first, the cars are heading out there onto the track, so let's go ahead and get down trackside and see if we can pick them up as they are heading out to get their qualifying efforts in. So we take a look here on the track. We've got James Kennedy putting in our first hot lap thus far up to the top, and obviously not bothering to follow with our non-commercial sponsor logo policy, but getting his favorite beverage on there. And so James Kennedy on the pole thus far, 25.43 for today's race. And David Zaleski now just putting in his second lap. Kind of cut away for a second. There we go. David Zaleski, already a race winner here in the US IndyCar League, and has been, since he's come back here after a couple of races absence, has put down some great speed. Great to have him back in the field. Currently sitting in second position. Rick Lovison now putting in his lap, coming in third. So we take a look at some of the drivers who haven't made it out yet. And you know something, I just noticed Maddie Simpson put in a partial qualifying lap. It was not good enough to take it was not complete enough to take a full lap and get a full lap in the books. So he is currently looking at starting from the back. He's going to try to get another lap in here momentarily. You can see Rick Kelbaugh also out there, Mr. StickQuik, putting in his lap. As Graham Bunyan did cement that top time on the charts, 25.39, as you can see there. And last time by going exactly the same speed. So no real improvement there. We see Rick Kelbaugh getting in his lap. Currently now in 10th place. So we watch as Mr. StickQuik brings it across the start-finish stripe for the second time, and he will slot into 8th with a faster lap on that one, 25.58. Maddie Simpson out there, and shows that he is getting in his second lap here. So we'll see what kind of time he can get in. Across the stripe for only a 25.77. Not the kind of lap speed that we're used to seeing from Matty. Also, here is David Strid, fellow Australian, to Graham Bunyan and Maddie Simpson. David Strid, frequent top contending driver here in the US IndyCar League, puts in a second fastest lap. Now this is, I think it's kind of personal, I'm sure, between Strid and Bunyan, because Bunyan seems to come away with all those wins. But it's Strid who has shared the number of pole positions this season with Graham Bunyan at 4. Currently second fastest, was not able to improve enough on that one to take the pole position. Have not yet seen Mike West or Danny Alt. We did get Howard Livingston out there, but he only was good enough for 12th fastest. So, not a surprise. It is again Graham Bunyan who is fastest here in Homestead, and hope you're having a great day out there wherever you're at, getting ready for trick-or-treating or whatever you're doing in your part of the world. I don't know if you celebrate Halloween, whatever country you're in, but here in the United States, big holiday. And as you can see, I think a lot of these drivers are excited for today's race here at Homestead. We've got 14 cars in the field. Glad to see Danny Alt making it back in today, and also a new driver, Sebastian Kinder. Looking forward to getting to see him race. Always great to have some of the series regulars back in the field as well. So, with that being said, we have qualified. Let's go ahead and get the qualifying results up there for you. As you can see, it is Graham Bunyan, no surprise, taking that top position for today's race, and that might be important. 35 to 40 laps on this fuel tank today, but controlling the front, always important, especially at a track like this where passing might be, it's a little easier than a couple of tracks that we've been to recently, but certainly it's not the easiest place to get around somebody. But we should see some great racing, some great drafting, and I'm excited. I'm sure you are at home as well. So as we look at the cars gridding up down on the track, getting ready for 127 laps around Homestead. It is, as I mentioned, Graham Bunyan, David Strid second, James Kennedy third, David Zaleski fourth. Starting on the third row will be Rick Lovison and Dan Ensch on the outside there. And on the fourth row, Jason Lowe. Starting on the outside will be Ryan Bowles. Fifth row, Richard Kelbaugh. And outside will be Matty Simpson. Then it's newcomer Sebastian Kinder and Howard Livingston. And our final row will be Mike West and Danny Alt, neither of which choosing to take an official lap time, or neither actually being able to get in a lap time. I show that Mike West tried to get at least out onto the track, but that was all he could do. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at the points as they stand. And, well, it's not much of a surprise here either. It's last season's champion, and this season's points leader now has been, I think, the whole season. 354 points to Graham Bunyan. You see the win column there is, it's pretty much just Graham, except for 2 wins coming from David Zaleski. So we look forward to seeing whether Zaleski can do the same thing today, find that speed to be able to get up there and challenge these really amazingly talented Australian drivers that make up the US IndyCar League. So we'll get the points off and stand by for action here today, as it will be Graham Bunyan leading us down to the start-finish stripe. And we get ready for this one to kick off. Just moments away, and we are green. Graham Bunyan first across the stripe, David Strid second, James Kennedy in third. So they're still filing into position in through turn 1 and 2. And we have a car off. I believe it's Matty Simpson. Matty Simpson in the wall on the backstretch. And he spins it around. He's got some loose parts dangling. Looks like his left front tire is all out of whack. It's not enough to bring out a caution. But Matty has to escape back to the pits. But we go back to the live picture. We'll get you more information on that. We'll watch a replay here in just a couple of minutes. And as soon as this one settles down a little bit. But you can see David Strid immediately marching to the front, taking that position away from Graham Bunyan. Not really surprised to see these two swapping positions, but I tell you who is kind of a surprise thus far. Glad to have this kind of surprise. It's James Kennedy back there in third place, and he is a driver that has won in this series before. He can do it again. He was showing pace in Texas, shown pace in a lot of different races, but right now this could be his day. It's looking like he's able to get into third, and possibly we'll see if he can hang on. This setup put together by several different drivers yesterday. Of course, a fixed setup here in the US IndyCar League. And as we work here, lap 5, once again, Proud to have you here with us on VirtualRacing.Network as we're watching round 9 of season 12 of the US IndyCar League. We've got some side-by-side action just a little bit further back. That's Jason Lowe now trying to take some sort of look at coming forward, but it's actually Ryan Bowles who's moved up 2 spots so far today already. So finding some speed. Ryan Bowles moving forward quickly. Just in front of him, Dan Ensch, series regular, and talked to him a lot last week about the alls.org on his car. We played the Alzheimer's Association public service announcement, getting some message out about Alzheimer's and how it can be treated and hopefully finding a cure. So if you missed that race, make sure you go back and check it out on our VirtualRacing.Network channel. And as always, suppose I should mention it, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Trevor Greenfield, and I am the guy who's calling the plays today. And that's why we get a chance to focus the camera on whoever we want, and that's a lot of fun. Unfortunately, sad news for Danny Alt fans. Danny did not quite make it to the starting grid. He didn't get in a very good qualifying. I mean, he came out onto the track, but he did not get a qualifying lap in. So a start in park for Alt, but I don't know that you get any points or anything like that. I'm not sure. Either way, we continue here on lap 9. It's James Kennedy in third, trying to chase down Graham Bunyan, and it's David Strid who's walked away by over a second off the front. So this is quickly starting to turn into a single file race as we jump back to David Zaleski, who follows Kennedy now, once again about a second back. We look behind, that's Dan Ensch. And from Dan's point of view, once again, it's a little ways up and a little ways back, as we have officially settled into single file racing here at Homestead. But this is kind of how it goes here at Homestead. It settles in for a bit, and then we can see who does better with those weight jacker and anti-roll bar adjustments, as we see some new side-by-side racing here. Ryan Bowles making a lunge to the inside on Dan Ensch and not able to pull that one off. They continue to battle as looks like Ryan Bowles now looking for a way to get past in a hurry. This from on board with Ryan. So you can see there Bowles clipping into Ensch's lead ever so slightly. Do have news that Matty Simpson has rejoined the race. Unfortunately, he's barely getting around the track. Can we get over to that? Yes, he's still on pit road. So now coming back into the pits, he's only completed now 2 laps. So unfortunately, Matty had to go out and come back in. I wonder if he just didn't quite get it fully fixed or what, but unfortunate for Matty having that issue in the beginning. Why don't we go ahead and jump back to that incident? And this was Matty just having a moment there. Perhaps if we back it up a little bit here, take a look. Not really sure. We'll just jump on board and see if we can catch anything that happened to Matty as he was coming around turn 2. He just wants to step out on him. Just a classic. Perhaps tires still too cold. Either way, just wanted to step out. Gets it spun back around, but as we mentioned, doing some damage and leaving that car needing some serious repair. But back up to the front, 16 laps into this 127 lap race. No cautions thus far. It is the Homestead, excuse me, the Homestead 190 presented by StickQuik. Always forget to mention that presenting sponsorship, but indeed, all of our races here presented by StickQuik, the exception of the races for special causes that we have on the calendar, which was just our last race, which is a fight against Alzheimer's, and then at the final race of the season, we'll be joining the Care Camps group, thanks to Howard Livingston and what he does. That'll be for Indy. So make sure to stay tuned to that. Pick that one up. Hello to anybody joining us over in the YouTube chat room. Says you can barely hear me. Not quite sure what that would be. It does show that my VU is set correctly. But Will Stern's letting us know that his granddaughter wishes everyone a fun and safe race. Unfortunately, Will dealing with some problems and some issues going on and a couple of sad times. So our wishes with Will out there for sure. And I hope you have a happy Halloween. Anyway, your granddaughter gets some good candy. And same thing to all of you watching today. Hope your loved ones are having a happy Halloween. And difficult, I know, with COVID and everything else to be able to get out there and find the places to go trick-or-treating. But I think everything opening up just a little bit. Hopefully everybody having a great, happy holiday. Iñigo Montoya is letting us know, unfortunately, he's missed today's race. And that is unfortunate because Iñigo is a great racer who very frequently can find his way to the front in these oval races. So we continue on here on lap 21. It is David Strid ahead of Graham Bunyan by about 2.5 seconds. So Strid really able to work those adjustments and put some time on Bunyan. Now, it is possible that Bunyan has elected for the fuel save strategy today, that he doesn't necessarily always go with a mega fuel save strat, but nevertheless, it's James Kennedy here on your screen, who currently is running in third. He qualified third, he's running in third, and unfortunately he slipped about 2.5 seconds back himself from Graham Bunyan. So really what we're watching to find out is who is doing the best on those tires, who's making the best adjustments, etc. over the course of the first stint. And we'll be looking to see some cars coming in right around lap 35 to 40. So we'll be able to find out who exactly has been doing the best fuel savings. So David Zaleski here in 4th place. As I mentioned, he has 2 wins on the season. His only issue is that he has not been able to jump into all of the races that all of the other competitors have, and so as a result, he's down in the points compared to where you would expect somebody who has a couple of wins already. But David's a little, he's a little hit or miss as he goes flying by the lap car of Matty Simpson. He's a little hit or miss in terms of his overall speed each week, but more often than not, he is fast and he's right up there challenging with the leaders. So this is usually the time that Zaleski starts really making up a little bit of that gap. And so we'll keep watching to see whether he can close in on James Kennedy. But he started 4th. He's currently running in 4th. So we mentioned Dan Ensch, last week's real focus. Now about to get around the lap car there of Simpson himself. But Ensch is now just over a second back from Zaleski. So one of the things as we watch these drivers here, we jump back to Jason Lowe, 3-time champion here in the series, as Lowe now powers his way right on by the purple and white and black machine of Dan Ensch. Kind of drifted up a little high there, but continuing on his groove. So the cars continue here on lap 27 of the US IndyCar League at Homestead for race number 9 of season 12. And it's Jason Lowe on your screen. He's up 2 spots. currently running in 5th. Now, it was quite a hot practice a little while ago. I was watching. It was up into the teens, about 115 degrees on the track earlier. But virtual time, sim time here in virtual Homestead, Florida is 5 o'clock, and the practice was running, a little bit earlier than that. So as it gets later here, temperature will start to fall, already down to 101 degrees. So potentially a strategy will emerge that will allow you to go a little bit more aggressively on these tires. As we watch in the back, it's Ryan Bowles. Very close racing. He slid up the track right in front of Matty Simpson. And there you can see Rick Lovison getting by. So Rick Lovison now up into 7th place. And unfortunately, he has dropped back a spot from where he started. So these drivers now getting to the end of the tire life cycle, and we await the very first pit stops from our leaders. We'll start to see who's been doing the fuel saving and the tire saving or not. So watching these gaps now, Zaleski not able to really reel in the leader very much. It just seems to be spacing out almost evenly here. As we continue to go through the field, Ryan Bowles, well, he started in 8th. He's running in 8th now. He had gotten up a position, but actually up a couple of positions, but now he's starting to drift back again. So Bowles trying to make those adjustments, but thus far not super successful. Now we do have our first taker. It's David Strid onto pit lane on lap 33. So not only, I'm going to go back here and look. Yes, indeed. I got a tip that the fuel window was actually 35 through 40. And to see Strid coming in this early, I think it's more of a measure of just trying to evenly split the race than necessarily meet the fuel window. So trying to meet it equally, but that might be some of these drivers as you see them coming down the pit lane here to make their first stops. So we've got, let's see if we can get the pit stop board up and running. Eventually we will. So you can watch their pit stop times down at the bottom. Time in the box on the right and time on pit road on the left-hand side. Jason Lowe, Rick Lovison, David Zaleski, Dan Ensch, Mike West. And we're seeing now Jason Lowe onto pit lane. So as these drivers all making their way around, it is actually Ryan Bowles who takes over the lead. So he manages to overcut the competition and go an extra couple of laps. Now, there is advantage to undercutting and overcutting. It really comes down to, as we can see, David Strid now setting the fastest lap on the track on his first lap out, 25.81, and currently reclaims second place. As Howard Livingston now pitting on the IndyCar oval pit lane and now bringing it into the pit. So Howard Livingston was in the lead temporarily, but the number 13 is going to finally take that pit stop, and that should give up the lead, as it does, to David Strid, who was in the lead, of course, before this pit stop cycle began. Now, I'll tell you, a gap that has kind of closed down, if you're noticing there, is Bunyan to Kennedy. Bunyan now, as we see Strid working around the outside of Sebastian Kinder, who is our first lap down at the moment. It's a great paint job there, Sebastian. Absolutely, that's pretty cool. It's got the French colors on it. I mean, it's got like kind of everything, right? It's got the racing stripe going down the middle of the car, and then it's got the flames on the side. So, I mean, I understand he's from France, but it doesn't get much more American than putting a racing stripe and a bunch of flames on your car. Anyway, looking cool. But the first car a lap down, and Sebastian currently running in 11th place, but probably having a lot of fun out there, I would imagine. Richard Kelbaugh here, currently running in 12th. He's lost 3 spots from where he started, but, you know, Rick is one of those drivers who's out there. He's just having a great time. I kind of picturing Rick like his Facebook photo looks, with a big smile on his face every single lap. Just having a good time, driving around, and learning how to go faster and faster each and every week. And, well, he always seems to be glued to the track. And there's a good reason why. If you look on the side pod, StickQuik, I mean, it's what they're known for, sticking to things. You can stick to anything. Rick is certainly stuck to that track. Never seems to get loose. If you notice, I think we've been watching a long time. I don't think I've ever seen Rick Kelbaugh getting loose on track. I have to really scan my memory, so I'm just trying to play out that StickQuik joke as long as I can. Thanks for watching here on VirtualRacing.Network and not unsubscribing or disliking. Really appreciate it. Speaking of which, if you do appreciate what we're doing here on VirtualRacing.Network, we do appreciate you. And certainly join the family, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you'll get notified of all of our future races, especially here US IndyCar League, but also the Prime Meridian Racing League, which we cover now in its 2nd season on Wednesdays. Very exciting league, Prime Meridian, as you can imagine. Many Europeans joining that series, and a lot of fun to watch. A lot of great tracks. But then also on Thursdays, the iRacing NTT IndyCar Fix series, bringing you live coverage with Gary Godso during that broadcast. So, yes, make sure you like the video as well, and that helps with the old algorithm and how much they decide to show our videos. And, you know, another way to do it, if you really like what we're doing here on VirtualRacing.Network, please share, if you don't mind. You know, if you're into it, maybe some of your friends, other racing buddies, if you happen to know these drivers, as we see Graham Bunyan now making his way past Rick Kelbaugh. But yeah, if you know these drivers, if you just love IndyCar racing, if you're an iRacing fan, it's great. Just share the video with everybody, anywhere, all the places. We try to share it a little bit ourselves, but certainly you help us out in that way as well. So we continue here on lap 46, not quite halfway yet, about another 10 laps until we get there. We've done 1 round of pit stops. There's been no cautions thus far, and the show has pretty much been David Strid starting on pole with Graham Bunyan in 2nd, and I'm sorry, Graham Bunyan starting on pole with David Strid in 2nd, and then them reversing that basically on lap 2. And since then, that's been the way that it has been, with Strid out there in the lead, opening up to coming up on a 5-second gap over Bunyan, which is hard to do, but David Strid is one of those drivers who knows how to do it. James Kennedy starting in 3rd. So we take a look at Bunyan, and now we move back to James Kennedy starting in 3rd. Might be easy to get him and Rick Kelbaugh's machines a little confused, but if you look closely enough, one has our presenting sponsor logo on it, StickQuik, and the other one has some sort of a beverage on it, which I'm sure many parents will be drinking at some point tonight after all the candy has been accounted for. David Zaleski here in 4th place, having a good run. Not up there yet challenging for the lead, but making the most of his car, hanging in the right place. He can still see the 2 in front of him from there after a round of pit stops. So able to make some good adjustments already through the first couple of stints, and really only 11 seconds between him and David Strid at the moment. Just 6.8 seconds up to Graham Bunyan. So definitely not out of touch, and depending on how he can adjust going forward, he may be able to claw in 1 or 2 positions, even with green flag racing. Might be a little tricky to overcome that full gap up to David Strid, though. But that's what racing's all about. Now, should we have a yellow flag, which is probably a cursed way to talk, but should we have one, of course, all of this will get bunched up, and all of our strategy will go right out the window. Jason Lowe here, 3 times champion of the US IndyCar League, and then last season, it was Graham Bunyan who decided to really take it super seriously, and he was able to overcome Jason Lowe and take that crown. And Lowe this season has had pretty much his hands absolutely full trying to get that 004 machine pointed right and keep it on the track and keep it up in the front. And it seems like each and every week seems to be able to challenge and get up into that top 5, like right where he's at right now, gaining 2 spots so far today. But it's been a real difficulty to get up onto the podium, and there have been no wins for Jason Lowe thus far this season. So not having the season that he was having last season yet, but overcoming adversity, overcoming challenges and setbacks. This is Jason Lowe is a driver with a lot of years of racing experience. He did it in real life for a number of years, doing short track racing, lots of dirt racing, even doing some SCCA stuff prior to that. And so anybody who does race in real life, you certainly get to know your share of setbacks. And there's always the races you come home with cars in buckets and bags and pieces, and those are big setback days where you don't usually finish anywhere close to in the points. So, Lowe is used to these types of setbacks. He's had them before. He had to undergo major shoulder surgery and fight back from that. So now just figuring out how to get on top of the juggernaut of Australians at the front of the US IndyCar League, be able to beat them weekly. That is, it's not just Jason Lowe. Everybody's trying to figure that out. Here's Ryan Bowles, who has taken a win before in this series. I think he'd like to do that again. We look forward to seeing Bowles up there in the front, but right now he's only gained a spot today and running in 7th place. Here is the Care Camps machine of number 13. It is Howard Livingston. He's up 4 spots so far, running in 8th. But for Howard, he's been as high as 2nd in the championship, and probably is there. He's backing off the throttle. Looks like it kind of wanted to steer down the track, wanted to oversteer down the track on him. So we watch on board now. Let's listen in. He's really out of the gas very lightly on the gas exiting the corner. I'm not sure if he's fuel saving. Perhaps having an issue. But the Florida-based driver continuing on here in 8th place, and for his championship hopes, of course, number 1 goal is to keep it on the track for sure. Not hit anything, not hit anybody. And you'll you'll certainly end up finishing better that way. But for him, I think to be as high as second, he's going to be looking at trying to get out of the last of these races here in the league. He's going to be trying to get up there in the top 3, top 4, top 5, and running back in 8th will not accomplish that. And he understands that a lot of the reason why he would have been up there in the front is because Jason Lowe has had the type of season that he has had. He's been off a little bit. Dan Ensch not quite able to get up there and steal those podium positions as regularly as well. So, you know, and that's really, we've seen this in real life racing. You see it here in league racing, championship racing at all. Some drivers, they come out there and they just blitz the season in the first few races. They get great finishes, maybe a couple of wins, and then as the competition of everybody else, they start to figure out the car, or they figure out the setups, or, you know, they start to really step up their game, overcome some of their setbacks, for example. It's very interesting to watch in real life because those drivers can sometimes really come back at the end of the season. And in IndyCar, I mean, this is something that we see practically every single season in real life. So again, I think this is the point in the season where Livingston has to stay up there and keep fighting, as we see now David Zaleski coming in for his stop on lap 64. So going even less laps than before. We're also getting Dan Ensch on pit road, interesting enough. So we'll see what these drivers can do here on pit lane. As Graham Bunyan continues on the track, we're now over halfway. 65 laps into this 127 lap round 9 here from Homestead. Happy Halloween to everybody watching out there. And if you just tuned in, well, we're just under our second round of pit stops. Graham Bunyan coming in from second place. And we also saw now David Strid exiting the pits as he was just on pit road. Technically on the pit lane exit now. There he heads out onto the track. So Bunyan now just making his way into his pit box. You can also see Rick Lovison making a stop there. So that had momentarily turned over the lead to James Kennedy, but now Kennedy himself coming down pit road. And that will turn over the lead to Jason Lowe. So Lowe, who's yet to come in and make that second stop. The first driver to have done so, of course, in the order would be David Strid, who's currently running in 7th, but we await everyone down pit road. James Kennedy on pit road, and now Jason Lowe makes his way down pit road. Now, a lot of these drivers, we also see Ryan Bowles on his way, and Howard Livingston continues around, so he'll take over the lead at this point. But definitely seeing a lot of these drivers choosing to I don't want to say short fuel, because I don't know that they're doing that, but certainly undercut everyone else in terms of when they're coming in. And there is bonus points available for leading a lap, leading the most laps. So, you know, just take a shot in the dark and you know, do some extra fuel saving and maybe get your way up there into the front. Hey, here's a name we haven't seen at the front very recently. It's Mike West. He's won a race here since we started covering the league in season 10, excuse me, the very end of season 10. But Mike has had issues really similar to Jason Lowe. Kind of surprising to watch a race winner have that many issues during the season, but sometimes having problems getting into the pits, getting out of the pits. There you see really locking up. It does look like he got it slowed down, but having some issues with those, and occasionally during the race having a little weight jacker oversteer kind of stuff. But West getting a point for leading, and I think that's what he was after there. So Graham Bunyan here in second place, and just up the road there, that is David Strid. In the meantime, Mike West on pit road, Sebastian Kinder on pit road, and Rick Kelbaugh also on pit road. And West now makes his way back out onto the track. So as we continue here, lap 71. Just about to start working on lap 72. Apologize for the momentary delay in audio there. David Strid continues in the lead. And so this is after 2 rounds of pit stops. It's actually Graham Bunyan has closed a little bit. If you're watching carefully, the gap times really haven't changed all that much in the last 30 laps or so, even with 2 pit stops really happening. As you can see, the last 35 laps, I guess you could say, or 40 laps, it's stayed almost exactly the same. Now, Zaleski is 11 seconds back from Strid. Kennedy is just coming up to 8 seconds back, but there's only 3 seconds between Bunyan and Kennedy, and then that 3 or 4 seconds back from Kennedy to Zaleski. So really, we're still seeing all of this top 4 drivers basically with the same pace out there, and that just means that should anything break loose, or should one of these drivers start to suffer with their tires, it will have one of these other drivers right on top of them. And I'm not just trying to make something out of out of what is essentially a single file race at this moment, but the truth is that any one of these drivers could make their way forward at any point here. So we're just watching to see who starts suffering or with those tires, or possibly who will be the cause of our first caution on the day. And thus far, we haven't hit that number. So Jason Lowe back here in 5th. He is up 2 spots today and sitting back about 3.8 seconds from David Zaleski. So we watch now from on board. Let's see what kind of lap Jason Lowe is having running in 5th. Is he struggling? Certainly does not sound like it to me. Certainly not on that massive fuel saving strategy. I mean, his lap looks completely different, sounds completely different than we heard from Howard Livingston at the end of that last stint. So I mean, that is either down to fuel saving, or it's, I mean, this is not just a driving style. That's got to be down to fuel saving, or perhaps damage to Howard Livingston's car. But very different driving at the moment between Jason Lowe and Howard Livingston. Now, this is on board with Dan Ensch. You can see that is a bit of a different style for Ensch. Ensch choosing to brake a bit, come down on entry, let it ride up sort of in the mid portion of the corner through 1 and 2. Really similar strategy here through 3 and 4. So why is this track cursed, you ask? As we said at the top of the broadcast, well, it's pretty simple. It was designed at a time when, and by the way, I'm going to interrupt myself, and then I'll come back to that. But I just want to say, I was looking over the YouTube chat room, and we got Manuel Gomez Esteban stopping in, letting us know, unfortunately, they changed the time in Spain. We didn't change it here in the United States yet. We're looking forward to it. I can't wait. But unfortunately, missed the start. And apparently that also affected Iñigo Montoya. Don't exactly know how that works, but, you know, I don't control that. I know there's some people who want to abolish that whole time savings thing. And if that means we get more racers out there on the grid, I'm all for it. But Julian Altena also stopping by, and Don Day stopping by. So Julian Altena another racer who is racing iRacing IndyCars in various different leagues, including his own Velocity Online Racing leagues, and doing coverage for those, but also joining us for a race here in the US IndyCar League already this season. And we'd love to have him get back out there. Of course, Julian also does the commentary with me on Wednesdays for the Prime Meridian Racing League IndyCar races, which of course you can catch here on VirtualRacing.Network. Make sure, again, if you're not subscribed, which it's weird, I mean, this is a common thing with people who make videos on YouTube, but it's weird when I look at the analytics on the YouTube videos, half of you that are watching these races are not subscribed. I don't know what that's all about. Just hit that big red button on there, click it with your mouse, tap it with your finger, and I promise we won't do you wrong. If you love IndyCar racing and iRacing, among other types of racing that we bring you here on VirtualRacing.Network, just continue to get bigger and bigger and better, hopefully. And thanks to everyone who has contributed, both by sharing and liking and subscribing and all of that good stuff. But also, as we see James Kennedy here on the underside of Maddie Simpson, Maddie having that issue on lap 1, and unfortunately having to spend the whole rest of the race really in catch-up mode. But yes, anyway, we appreciate your contributions financially to VirtualRacing.Network. Jesper Orman coming in, Jessica Sabin supporting us, Thomas Christensen coming in and supporting us, Erica Lindstrom, and several others, as well as the US IndyCar League in a big way in September. US IndyCar League supporting us. We'll have other news. There is another benefactor that has emerged for us that is making a small investment in what we're doing here for VirtualRacing.Network. And we also have some really grandiose plans that we're working on that we'll love to tell you about for what's coming up for season 1 or next season as we get to it for the official series in iRacing. As we continue to watch here, the gaps are so far apart that, well, there's nobody really nose to tail with anybody out there, but we continue to watch here. So I suppose now's the time to get into that story a little bit more about the cursed racetrack. Well, this track is a oval. See if we can get up top, take a look at it. You can just see these are pretty round corners here at the Speedway. Well, it wasn't like that before. You see, when they designed it back in 1992, this was supposed to be really, really close to the Indy layout. So four very distinct corners. And for those of you that want to go back and see what it was like back then, you can watch the kart race from, I believe it was 1997, I want to say that it was, with 1995 being the first year that the Busch Series ran here for NASCAR. You can go back and see those old races, of course, on YouTube, but that track layout was kind of universally hated by everybody. And one of the major factors on that track being hated was that the angles upon which you would exit the corners, if you hit one of the, it just was susceptible to big impacts. So if you went through the corner normally and had any sort of a spin or anything, you were pretty much headed for the wall. And so the angle of incident, I believe it's called, was the reason officially, but just the layout really did not produce excellent racing. That just wasn't long enough of a track. This is only 1.5 miles instead of 2 miles like Indy. And so as a result, there just wasn't long enough straightaways to pass. And so they went back to the drawing board and said, well, let's reprofile this thing. And so they completely redesigned it. I mean, first they did try to change the apron here, but that didn't help, and the racing didn't really improve. And so once again, the curse stuck around. And so then they went and decided, okay, let's just completely change this to the modern layout that you see here now. And recently they've been trying to play with the progressive banking, etc. And the NASCAR guys absolutely love progressive banking. So being able to run up near the wall is absolutely loved by NASCAR. It's a huge factor for racing here at Homestead. And so Homestead continues to live on, but with a cursed past. Fortunately, I don't believe there have been any driver fatalities here, and that is not always the case at some of the other racetracks. Certainly if you've been around for 20 years or so as a racetrack, or 30 years now as a racetrack, a lot of these ovals that are high speed have seen their share of injuries and death. But we continue on here. Happy Halloween, talking about morbid subjects on Halloween. I guess that's the only time to really do it, but nevertheless, we watched James Kennedy rolling around here in third in a very scary black and green paint job there. Actually, that brand, of course, for those of you that know, very heavily, well, the name in it is Latin inspired, or is Latin, is Spanish. So obviously, much of that brand's marketing actually is in the Dia de los Muertos sort of styling about this time of year. David Strid now into the pits as I focus on the wrong car. There we go, David Strid into the pits. So your leader, as well as David Zaleski, coming in here on lap 97. So this is your final stops of the race. We watch Strid head down that pit lane for one final time. He'll take full tires and fuel. Car goes up on the jacks. Graham Bunyan inherits the lead, and he's out of the box, back out onto the track. So once again, now this is actually a great thing for David Strid at this point, now that he's made that final stop, and I'm going to tell you why. Strid has had problems with speeding penalties. He's had problems until this point in the race before with sometimes getting it wrong with racecraft, and just these little issues costing him so much. I think Graham Bunyan burning off there as he leaves the pits. Beautiful shots here from these camera angles. But Bunyan heading back out onto the track. But back to the story about Strid. And Strid has not been able to get that win here in the US IndyCar League this season, and he's been right up there. He's had the racecraft through most of the race to do it, but thus far not able to get that win. And today might be the day. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling a sense of difference here as we see a couple of drivers now getting off pit lane. It's James Kennedy, and I believe that was Mike West. No, I'm sorry, Mike West still continuing here. He'll be heading into the pits. Didn't quite catch who that was leaving in front. But West now in. You can see Lovison also in. And that does turn it over to Jason Lowe as West smokes the tires coming in, as well as Jason Lowe does. And as always, we wait to see if any of these drivers busted for speeding. Lowe comes into his pit box. Three-time champ. And, well, let's check in with the Rick Kelbaugh report. Rick is currently in 7th place. He's up 2 positions. He's about to make his final stop. And so we await him on pit lane. And in the meantime, I suppose that's a perfect time, I guess, for us to talk about one of my favorite things in the entire world. We'll go side by side to do that. Hey, it's the StickQuik. Look at that. And you can just look at it in the photos and see exactly what it does. It's one of those things, as soon as you see it, I mean, look at that photo there with just like 100 things up on the wall. I mean, it fits everything. The StickQuik is a patented, amazing device that will be in your home and in your shop and anywhere else you can think of it, because it is heavy duty silicone, weather resistant, and in addition, take a look at the fact that it comes with these little sticky pads. Now, what these things do is you can put them on anything that's kind of roundish or maybe even flat, like a wrench or just anything that'll really fit inside of there. The silicone stretches out to meet the outside of it, and you can get it in any one of these colors. Now, that's the first part of it. You can then take that, once it's been attached to your marker or to your mixer there in your kitchen or toothbrush or whatever the heck you want to put it around, you can stick that to anything that's metal or steel, you know, that will accept a magnetic connection. So that's cool. But then even beyond that, those little pads that they give you, well, you can stick those to anything that isn't metal. So now, which if you're following me along, you can stick the StickQuik on anything. Isn't that cool? So 6 of them come in a pack. They're really affordable. They would make great stocking stuffers for the holiday season. Make sure to head over to StickQuik.com and find out how you can stick anything to anything today. Head on over there, all 3 sizes in one pack, and like I said, about 6 different colors. So, Rick Kelbaugh makes his pit stop and resumes in 12th place. Has not had a top 10 type of day today, but he's getting close. So we'll see before the end of this one whether he makes that top 10. But for those of you out there, the StickQuik Rick Kelbaugh fans, still out there. He's still fighting. We'll see if he can get a top 10. In the meantime, we look back up at the front. It is David Strid who continues here. He took over the lead basically on lap 1. And that was it. So Bunyan running in second after losing that position at the very start of the race today. And 3.8 seconds back of Strid. Just trying to close that gap now, I think, at the end to possibly take that win. But he's got a long ways to go in 19 laps. I mean, if Bunyan was thinking that he would just, you know, wait it out and eventually be able to dial it in at the very end and make a lunge at Strid, I think that's kind of a little optimistic because Strid has had the pace today. I do see that it's dropped about a 10th in the last lap, but that's not going to do it. And in the meantime, and I know that Graham Bunyan would be more than happy to see fellow countryman and friend David Strid be able to come away with a victory here. And hopefully we can actually get David Strid into the Discord at the end, but well, we're not going to jump ahead of ourselves here. 17 laps to go here for round 9 of the US IndyCar League. So great to have you with us. We're having a classic Homestead race where everyone is just having to figure it out for themselves essentially on the track. Not too much side by side that some of the other tracks are known for, but it's an individuals race today. It's one of those individual challenges. Can I stay up on what the car is doing? Can I make those adjustments? Can I make sure that pay attention to the draft and I don't lose too much in the aero push? Put me up into the tires, put me up into the marbles, put me up into the tires, into the fence, put me up into the marbles and spin me out, etc. Don't want to go too high on the weight jacker. That could spin me out as well from turn 2, turn 4. But fortunately, not seeing too many mistakes from any of these drivers today, and this sort of a green flag racing from flag to flag is not a shocker here in the US IndyCar League. Very clean drivers, very much a gentleman's racing series until you get right down to the those last couple of laps, and then it's kind of all gloves are off, as it is in many different series out there. You see a lot of drivers coming forward at the very end. But Graham Bunyan is a little too far back to really be looking at possibly getting a win here. He is still over 3 seconds back with 13 laps to go. James Kennedy has been having a heck of a day today. This is the type of pace that we kind of have been seeing out of James. And with no real mistakes today, he's been able to hold the pace of the leaders for the most part. In fact, he's quicker in some of the sectors than the leaders, and that last time by was actually faster than leader David Strid, and about the same time as Graham Bunyan. So, continuing here, David Zaleski holding on to that 4th spot. Highly coveted, highly needed for his championship hopes. He's just started to come back up the points, and now running in 4th. Lowe holding on to that 5th spot, and once again, it's just another another time to say this is 5th is not normally where you would say that Jason Lowe would want to finish, but goodness, after the season that he's been having, I think he would take a string of top 5s, that's for sure, and to cut out some of those little mistakes that have really plagued him this season. Here, Dan Ensch holding on to 7th. He's lost a spot on the day. His fuel strategy that he's known for, that mega fuel save, unfortunately not really part of his game plan today, and not really effective for anybody. Yellow flag's not really helping out anybody either, to try to bunch the field back up and maybe get another shot at everybody with some fresh tires. But nevertheless, all these drivers continuing on and not really... the fortunate part is none of them making that sort of mistake that's going to bring out that yellow flag. So Rick Lovison in 8th. He's lost 3 spots from where he qualified, but Rick, a top 10 position. He was as high as 3rd in the points at one point. So, again, how do you get there? Well, instead of finishing in 14th, you finish in the top 10. Instead of finishing in the top 10, you aim for the top 5. And if you can do that every race while others are having troubles, you end up getting all of those points and others start slipping down the order. And so that's kind of been Rick's story thus far this season. Unfortunately for him, some of these other drivers have started really coming back into their own. And Jason Lowe, for example, finding a lot of speed. David Zaleski coming from nowhere and challenging for victories. And now James Kennedy up in 3rd, having a series of very good runs. This one could be his best of the season right now, up into 3rd. So just 6 laps remain here for David Strid, who, as I mentioned, started 2nd, but tell you who's making a game of it. If you've been noticing that gap time, that gap there back to Bunyan has been closing a little bit. Now, at 5 laps to go, I keep making this prediction, but I just don't see it happening. I just don't see this gap coming down enough. But nevertheless, can Bunyan do it? Well, you see there, clipping into that lap time a little bit each lap, just not quite getting more than a 10th, and that's really going to be the most costly part. If he wanted to make this aggressive strategy to get back up there and possibly take the win from Strid, would have needed to launch it almost at the beginning of the stint so that he could keep clipping off those laps, but down to 2.39 seconds. I think this one may be a little out of reach for Bunyan. On board with Bunyan's machine. Now fighting for tenths of a second, but just not really able to clip any more time off of this lead from Strid. Got it down, so our timing and scoring says down to 2.3 seconds, but that's about where he was before. And as I mentioned, Kennedy kind of hanging on to 3rd here. We do have, this is an interesting battle. Oh, actually, it's not quite as close as I thought. About 2.3 seconds from Zaleski up to Kennedy. Now down to 2.2 seconds. But none of these drivers really side by side or close enough with each other to be able to challenge. And once again, hey, everybody, thanks so much for stopping into the chat room. We really appreciate it. Rooting on your favorite drivers. And we look forward to seeing Don Day, Julian Altena, Will Stearns, Manuel Gomez Esteban. I mean, that's a handful of drivers that we would love to see out there. We just had 4 of those guys. We'd be up to 18 cars out there on the grid. Pretty incredible. But here we are, the very last lap. And, of course, it is David Strid who takes that win. Congratulations to David Strid on his very first victory here in Season 12 of the US IndyCar League. Congratulations to the Australian. Graham Bunyan taking second place. Not really a season high there, but he'll take it. That's a way to stay up there in those points, and much better than getting bounced out like he did last week. Kennedy choosing to take a service road. Interesting decision there. That didn't really take him anywhere except into place where he's going to have to hand over the car in a bunch of pieces. Well, that was a very interesting race. I hope you enjoyed it out there. It was a lot of fun to cover. Pretty typical Homestead race, but nevertheless, it is one of those championship style races where really certain drivers hang on to their cars the best and able to really get their top 5s, top 10s. We take a look here as soon as we get this stuff off the screen at the final running order. So many buttons of things to hide on the screen. It'd be cool someday. I'll get it set up where we can just have everything on one screen. Here we go. It's your race results. Well, there it is. David Strid, your winner. First time winner here in the US IndyCar League. Takes the victory and looks great doing it. In fact, it was a fantastic victory from the Australian. No mistakes that we could see whatsoever. Graham Bunyan did get it down to 2 seconds there at the end, but not enough to clip into that lead and possibly challenge Strid for the win after having the position taken on the opening lap. Kennedy there in third. Great finish for him. That will work wonders for his championship hopes. And David Zaleski, previous winner here in the series. It's great to see him actually take that podium position. So the Dallas Texan now going to be moving up in the points as well. David Zaleski moving up after a couple of weeks off, having a couple of great races here. Jason Lowe with 5th, Ryan Bowles in 6th, Dan Ensch ending up in 7th, and Rick Lovison 8th, Howard Livingston 9th, Mike West 10th, Sebastian Kinder in his debut here finishing 11th, a lap down, and Rick Kelbaugh, Matty Simpson, and Danny Alt finishing it up. I don't think Alt turned a lap today, and Matty having an incident at the very beginning. So let's go ahead and see if we can figure out whether these drivers can get their the sweat off of their brow and down their favorite drink and make their way over to the booth, which is where I will be momentarily once I can find it. There we go. So let's see if we can, right now we're not having any of our podium finishers in there. Why don't we go ahead and, let's see, we can talk to Dan Ensch real quick, if Dan is available. Hey, Dan, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Oh, there he is. Hey, Dan, great to talk to you again. Of course, last week we had the Alzheimer's Association race, which was an amazing race to be able to cover. But today, unfortunately, you know, you were fighting hard, but it didn't really look like a fuel strategy race. You talk us through how the race kind of played out from your standpoint today?
I think the best man won. I think David ran a great race. He had this car under his hands, and it just all worked out for the guys the way it should have. I think, judging from practice, I think we finished exactly like we should have. Had a good time racing with Ryan. I might have been able to steal a spot from Ryan if I hadn't messed up my last pit stop just a little bit. I came in too hot and had to put the brakes on to keep from, washing out of that runway there. So I took a couple of seconds off my time right there at the end, and that probably cost me a spot. But hey, I had a good time. I think it's great. We've gone 2 races now without a yellow flag, and that really says something for the league. So StickQuik's got something to be proud of here. They've put together a nice league, and we do appreciate everybody that's helped with that.
You betcha. StickQuik does an awesome job, and always glad to have them here on board. But your day, unfortunately, I mean, as you said, the best man perhaps won today, but the fuel strategy really didn't work out in terms of being able to save fuel. Did you have trouble? Was it adjusting the car during the race from the cockpit? Did you feel the tires going away? It was a little hotter today. It was well over 100 degrees to start the race. Was that a factor today?
No, I think I just ran out of skill. I never did quite find the groove on this track the way I wanted to. And, the guys that did were up front.
All right. Well, always great to get you in here, Dan. Appreciate you stopping by and letting us know how you ran today. And, of course, good luck with the rest of the season, boss. I'm sure you'll be sharpening up and trying to get up there on that podium.
Oh, yeah. We still got a couple of tracks that do suit me pretty well. So I'm still looking for a win. And by golly, I'm going to get one somehow or another if I have to take everybody out.
Well, I know that won't be the case. I just literally can't picture Dan Ensch just plowing into the entire field. But
well, it is Halloween.
It is indeed. But you had to ask them beforehand, trick or treat, and if they wanted that trick, that would have been a heck of a trick. But nevertheless, Dan, great to have you with us, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week, bud.
All right. Thanks, Trevor, for all you do, and want to thank Spark for sponsoring me this year, as well as ALS.org. Everybody give them a look on the internet, ALZ.org. Thanks.
You betcha. That's Dan Ensch joining us from 7th today. He had a good run. I mean, ultimately, the results show he lost his spot, but it is one of those things where he didn't make any of those mistakes and crash out, take anybody else out, cause anybody else's race to be ruined. It's just one of those championship days where you end up in the top 10 and you march forward and try and get them next race. So let's take a look. Well, we've got a couple more here. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can get Howard Livingston to join us. Let's see if he's around. Hey, Howard, can you hear me? I don't know. Maybe he can. Let's see if we can get Howard in here. Hey, Howard. It's Trevor Greenfield. Can you hear me, bud? I don't know. He's probably having a margarita. You know that Howard Livingston down there in Florida playing those Jimmy Buffett songs. You just can't break away from it. That's okay. We'll see if we can get Howard in a little bit later if he's around. Hey, Graham Bunyan. Can you hear me, bud?
No. Yeah.
No, I can't hear you.
No, I can't hear you, but no, yeah, I can. I got voices in my head.
Well, okay, so Graham, thank you so much for joining us here. We really appreciate it. And now, Graham, not to sound condescending, but you only qualified on pole position here, and you finished in second. What's wrong?
I don't know. I've lost my touch. No, I first lap, turn 1 and 2, I just car drifted sideways, and that was it from there. But throughout the race, it's so hard. Pitch strategy was good, everything was good. My biggest issue was I come out with a few slower cars than me, but you've got no chance of getting past them. So that even though they're fast in their own right, it slows me down at the same time. So Dave just drove away, and it was just that Dave was caught in traffic that I started to catch back up. But it's a tough track here.
Absolutely. I try to talk about it. It's hard to tell, from a standard point of view, I guess you could say, of a race broadcast where you're looking for side by side, you're looking for drivers getting around other drivers and big slingshot passes and stuff like that from an entertainment standpoint. But as a challenge, Homestead presents a real challenge to hang on to that car, keep it balanced, and deal with the tires. Did you find the tires or the setup to be any sort of an issue today? Was it difficult to make those adjustments? And what do you think that David had going on today that you couldn't quite match his pace?
Clean air. Yeah, dirty air just upset the car too much. It didn't matter whether you had brand new tires and come out of the pits. If you had a car in front of you, that's where you were stuck.
And definitely, but nevertheless, being stuck there wasn't so bad for you. You managed to, if it got a little sideways in the beginning, it didn't look like you had much more of a mistake for the rest of the race. And of course, David did execute at extremely high level. None of those little mistakes, those little issues that have cost him. We were just, I was keeping my fingers crossed that he wouldn't end up in one of those positions that we've seen from the previous races where he's run so well and then dropped out. But nevertheless, there at the very end, it looked like you did manage to find some pace. Did you perhaps go up on weight jacker? Were you driving the car a little differently? Did you save some tires to try to make a lunge at it at the end? Looked like you managed to claw back about 2 seconds or so.
Yeah, again, the difference is I had clean air and Dave was stuck behind two other cars. So, Dan was fighting to stay on the lead lap, and that unfortunately slowed Dave right down. But there was no chance I was going to get him. I was too far back. I come out of the pits with Rick, I think it was, and I knew that was done. And I should have got out in front of Rick. I would have been a lot closer to Dave towards the end, and it probably wouldn't have been 2 seconds. It probably would have been 0.3 seconds. But traffic, just it was just bad.
Well,
not bad as in driving bad. It was just the traffic was just bad for the car.
Sure. And that speaks volumes about when you get a race like this where everybody does kind of settle into single file, if you want to call it that, and they have to be on their own race and manage their own tires and everything. Just the smallest of things can cost you a second and be the difference maker between being able to... at the end of the race, you're only 2 seconds back from David Strid. So if you look over the whole of the race, coming out behind somebody who's a little bit slower or encountering them at the wrong point of the corner when your competition doesn't, that could be the entirety of whether you end up first or second.
Oh yeah, definitely, and that's what it was. It was just there was some cars that were exiting some weird lines, and I was trying to get my head around on how I was going to get past. I got past one, and then the last one that I just, no matter where I put my car, I just couldn't get it to stick to get the speed out of the exit to be able to get him on the next turn. So,
well, nevertheless, got to be good for you to finally see your countryman David Strid. I know he's your bud, and you guys do a bit of racing together. To finally see him get that win has got to be a pretty proud moment for both you and him.
Oh, definitely, for sure. He's got the monkey off his back now, and hopefully he can advance and keep on continuing with that lucky streak. Well, it's not a lucky streak. He's a good driver, and that's the competition that this place brings, and it's good.
I can almost sense it in your voice, like the competitor in you wants to say, "Oh, he just got lucky with this win." But really, as we have looked back over the season, he has had the pace going back into last season, but he's had the pace to be there and possibly take victories. It's just been those little mistakes. So maybe that monkey being off his back will be a catalyst for him to possibly be able to get up there in the near future, be able to challenge you for wins and possibly look at that championship picture. But in the meantime, is there any chance we can ever get David to come and do an interview with us?
I don't think he talks. I think he's a mute. No.
We'll have to see. Maybe we can pressure him in the right way. We'll send him a gift basket. That's what we'll do.
Ooh, that might entice him, yeah.
Either way, no, I'll avoid all that. Anyway, yes. So, Graham, do you celebrate Halloween down under?
Look, they do. Probably about the last 10 years they've started to celebrate Halloween. So unfortunately, I didn't have any trick-or-treaters come at the door. I had a bowl full of lollies waiting for them, but then again, with COVID over here in Australia, still it's it's stopping a lot of that stuff. So
of course, so that was hours ago. I'm talking to you as though I'm talking to you from the United States future, I think. So yes,
I'm in the future. You got to get there yet. You got to time travel to get to me.
We got to talk about stocks. You can tell me all the places to invest. Anyway, Graham, I hope you enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll look forward to seeing you and, of course, Strid back out there on the track, hopefully next week and competing. And hopefully we might see the likes of Jason Lowe or others up there able to give you a challenge. Let's take a look back over here. And I did not... I did. Okay, so we got the right graphic on there. So next week, instead of going to the USA Oval, which I'm sure you were actually probably looking forward to, we're going to Michigan. Another... I mean, not that anybody doesn't love Michigan. High flying would be really similar to Auto Club. What's that you say, Graham?
I don't. I hate Michigan. You know what? Michigan was my... David Street got me out on track at Michigan. I always used to start from the pits when I was a rookie and trying to learn everything. Yeah, come on, get out on the track. And this was in the old Dallara, the original one. So, yep, old Graham here gets out on the track, and I planted on the start, and I rotate and went straight up in the wall. I hate that place.
So there's a little PTSD for you to work on. But yeah, I mean, and that can really set things in the wrong motion. I mean, I have my own tracks also that have just never really favored me. I've not, it's just one of those bad luck tracks. But there's always breaking that bad luck, and maybe we'll see you up there at the top step next week.
Yeah, look, you never know. It's just the luck of the draw with this thing. I think it's it changes from week to week. People advance, they get better, they get worse. Don't know.
Well, that's why you show up, right? It's one thing. It's like watching Formula One or IndyCar. I mean, on paper, you could say Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes wins every single week, or the Penske team. They're always going to be the winners because they're the best. They do the most testing, and they etc.
Yeah, but everybody hates them. I don't want to be hated, so I gotta start getting wrecked out or something.
Well, I mean, again, your talent is clearly on display. This is a fixed setup series, and you don't supply the setup. So, if anybody wants to change that, they could make the setups favor them instead. But nevertheless, you overcome it every week. And again, that's clearly out here on display. And you provide a great benchmark. But more to the point, I mean, on paper, you would say those things, but yet Penske didn't win the championship. And Hamilton is in dire straits here with a very fast-charging Verstappen who's leading that championship and giving him everything he can handle each week. So, again, who knows what we'll see next week at Michigan? That's why we all turn up. I'm thinking we're going to have a lot of side-by-side and draft pack action, but stay tuned. Next week, same time, same channel. Catch Graham Bunyan and David Strid, your winner and second place from Australia, joining us next week. Right, Graham?
Yeah, exactly, mate. And thank you. Thank you for everything you do, and thanks to everybody else who comes out in the league, and congrats to Dave and James. Dave definitely deserved that win. It was a tough battle, and it was fought to the end.
Well, absolutely my pleasure. We'll look forward to seeing you next week. Appreciate you stopping in and giving us a great interview, and good luck there at Michigan next week, bud.
Yeah, no worries at all. And I just got to throw in one more thanks. Thanks to Adge for giving us all the numbers and the fuel crunching and everything.
Absolutely. Got to thank your team for sure. That's Graham Bunyan joining us from second place where he finished. He started first, he finished second, but he couldn't be happier to see his friend and countryman finish ahead of him, David Strid, with the victory here. And that is your victor today. First time winner, David Strid, taking the win for race number 9. So that is going to do it for us here at Homestead. It was a pleasure to cover this one. Kind of a typical Homestead race, but again, as we tried to cover, quite a challenge for these drivers to keep it together and be able to finish and just finish. It's not so easy. So next week we'll see you over at Michigan. This has, of course, been... Apologize for that. Of course, so this has been a very happy Halloween presentation here on VirtualRacing.Network. It was the Homestead 190 presented by StickQuik. And for those of the Australians and those of you out there in the rest of the world who've already celebrated Halloween, and hopefully you don't take in too much of the candy that's left over in that bowl. But for all of you parents and grandparents and everyone else in the States who are about to celebrate Halloween, have a very safe one, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week at the same time, same channel. And as always, please make sure to subscribe and like this video for more. If you really enjoy what we do, please make sure you share this out there with all your friends and your family, etc., all your racing buddies. But then in addition, if you'd like to financially contribute, we're going to make a PayPal donation link available to you down in the description. And that helps all of us out here on VirtualRacing.Network cover all of these great series that we do and expand for next season, as well as pay our co-commentators. That's always a good thing. So, that being said, your winner here, David Strid, second to Graham Bunyan, and third to James Kennedy. We'll see you next week. Until then, I'm Trevor Greatfield. Bye-bye, everybody.